Hi, I've been wanting to make this video for almost a month now, but life has kind of gotten in the way and made it tough. Now, here we are on Inauguration Day for Donald Trump, and it's now or never. It is a tier list for his nominations for his cabinet. Okay. But I didn't want to do the kind of tier list I've seen on the internet, which are one, not very objective and talk a lot about what people believe in their ideologies. I was wanting to be more objective. It's impossible to be completely objective. I recognize that. But you can be more objective by one, not putting value judgments on what they believe, but instead talk about how qualified they are. And you can really look at what experience they have, what they've done with their life, and come up with what tier they would be in for qualification purposes. And that is what the point of this is. It is something that if you are participation in debate, and those are probably the people most likely to watch this or doing extemp speeches, listen up, because you can feel free to steal my arguments about why these people are qualified, underqualified, or not qualified. Because those questions are going to be coming up. All right. I am probably going to do 3 videos. One where I explain my criteria, as well as place the first 3 cabinet members that in positions that were around for George Washington, even, especially because they each have a different tier rank, and that kind of gives you a great example of what each tier is there for and what it means. I'll then, in the second video, go over the rest of their secretaries, the official members, secretaries of departments. And then I'll probably create a third video where I talk about a few of the other appointees, partly because that's actually where some of the more extreme picks are, uh, and more interesting. And that's the only way Trump gets S tiers. So I figure I want to try to be nonpartisan, and so give him some F and some S tier picks as well. Being nonpartisan and being kind of in that middle ground is something I've been pretty much my whole adult life. And I'm not going to stop being that way now. So, with no further ado, let's get on to the tiers. At the top of it is your S tier, super qualified. These people are qualified for the job, but also have direct experience with the department that they're going to deal with. All right. So if it was the deputy secretary of a department, they could be S tier because not only had they have tons of experience in whatever that department is, but they were the second in charge of that department before, so they have really hands-on experience. That would be the most qualified. So S tier is there. A is well qualified, but they lack that experience directly in the department, but they meet all the qualifications that exist. B is qualified partially. This had to be created for the Energy Department and Commerce Department because this is where most people historically who have been secretaries of Energy and Commerce have fallen. And that's because each of those departments includes something that is very different from the rest of the department. And so it's very unusual to actually find someone who's qualified over all areas of it. C tier is someone who's underqualified. It's someone who has experience in the area, but is not. It's not really the experience they need. It's not at the right level. A perfect example would be if I myself, someone who's a teacher and has taught middle school, high school, university, and community college, got nominated for Secretary of Education. First off, what are you doing, Mr. President? I am not qualified for that job. Uh, I would be put, though, in the C tier. All right. And that's because I've been at least a teacher. I've been involved in education, you know, uh, but not at a level for the Department of Education and being Secretary of Education. No, 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 I'm not. Meanwhile, most other departments, I would be D tier, unqualified, because I don't have any experience. All right. I don't in a lot of areas that the government does. Health and human services? No, not really. No, I don't have that much. I guess I am a credentialed health teacher. So maybe you could sit me into C there. Uh, but, like Defense Department, I've never been in the military. I've never been in the Department of Defense or worked for them. How am I anything but D tier for that? All right. Yeah, I would be D tier for Department of Defense or Department of Treasury. D, no qualifications whatsoever, underqualified, completely unqualified. And then the only place where actually their ideology and what their beliefs are is for F tier. And that is where they are antithetical to the reason the department or administration exists. When new departments have been made or new posts that these people fill, there are laws passed by Congress that actually give mission statements for them and about what they're supposed to do. And if their ideology is literally antithetical to what the department is supposed to do, they get the F tier. Now, this might be something you actually like personally. Uh, Maybe you don't like that department or that administration. Uh, and someone who hates it too and is going to blow it up might be exactly what you think should happen. And so that might be someone that you're like, what are you doing putting him F tier? But from a qualification standpoint, they clearly are not there to fulfill the job that they were there for. You are putting them there to actually destroy the administration or the department, not run it then. Um, and so the for objective purposes, they get to an F. So with that in mind, let's go through those first three. We'll then create a second video where we go through the other ones. And I like the first three because they really help put it down. So the very first one, who I believe has already been confirmed for his position, is Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. And he is well qualified. Okay, the reason he's the first one getting nominated is one, he's a senator himself, and senators like voting for themselves. Senators like voting for senators. Right. The same thing happened with John Kerry when he was becoming Secretary of State. Uh, he had lots of senators go, yeah, Senator, good job. The simple fact is, Marco Rubio has served on the Committee of Foreign Relations. That is the main Senate committee that deals with our foreign relations, which is what the Secretary of State deals with. He is amply qualified to do this job. I am glad he's getting confirmed because he should be getting confirmed based on his qualifications. Even if you don't like his politics, which I'm sure there are many liberals that don't, remember he's being asked to serve as Donald Trump's Secretary of State. And that means, like, he needs to have at least a similar standpoint as Donald Trump does, or else he's just going to get fired and not be effective because they're serving the president. So even if you don't like his political positions, the fact is he's well qualified and an A candidate. Next up on our hit list is a Department of Defense. All right. And that's where we have Pete Hegseth. And a lot has been said about Pete Hegseth that about, the accusation of sexual assault and stuff like that. That doesn't come into play here. No. He's still only a C tier. He is underqualified to be Secretary of Defense. And because all he has done to be qualified, he's rose to the rank of major in the military, technically a National Guard, but as a major, he was in Afghanistan and Iraq. But majors aren't the ones making logistical and strategic decisions. Those are usually being made by generals, not majors. He doesn't have any experience in that. Since that time, since he's been out of the military, he's worked with two different veterans groups, and he's done news reporting, media reporting for conservative media outlets. That's his qualifications. That's underqualified. It's like me being nominated to be Secretary of Education. Okay. And really the only reason a C tier person should be confirmed, because they're not qualified, is if they are supposed to do some other job as part of the department. Uh, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg was probably a C tier candidate for Secretary of Transportation. Maybe B tier, but really C tier. He dealt with metro transportation, and that's it. And not even a big city like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, South Bend, Indiana. Yeah, yeah. But the big reason he was actually picked up is Biden knew he wanted to pass an infrastructure bill that would often fall a lot under transportation. And Pete, well, he's really good at giving interviews and talking about things. And so they wanted Pete on the team to do that. Maybe Hegseth, because he's a media personality who's familiar with broadcast television, that's something they were wanting him to do. Uh, that just seems defense is a really big job when you're not having the person be qualified for the job. This is our military we're talking about. He's not qualified. He's underqualified to do this job. And unless something comes up as a clear reason for him to do this, he probably shouldn't be confirmed. And this has nothing to do with the accusations about him. It's the fact he's underqualified. All right, and then we get to Treasury. And I was actually surprised that when I looked into it, our nominee for Treasury Secretary, uh, Scott Bessent, is B tier. He's only partially qualified. He is a very big person when it comes to investments and certain amounts of finance, stock market, derivatives, those sorts of things. Really knowledgeable, very, very qualified. But that's not all the Treasury Department does. The Treasury Department is the accounting department for our government. Like, they're the ones who keep the books. All right. They're also the mint. In fact, it's the only part of monetary policy that the president really has some control over is coins. Coins are still made by the Treasury Department. They're also supposed to be an economic advisor for the president. And when this person's advice really is only trustworthy for Wall Street and not Main Street, he really does fall into that B tier. Now, he should probably still be confirmed. The great thing about these departments are you have people under them, and especially if you pick people to be under them that cover for the things they don't always know, you can still have a really, really good uh, position. So these are the first three. They also, most of the cabinet positions are going to fall into one of these three tiers anyway. And all of these are pretty good examples of it. So let's end this first video. If you like this, go ahead and watch part 2, where we do the rest of his department nominees.